Hi everyone, Jax West here. Said I would go live today for if anybody wanted to discuss the judge's denial yesterday. So I always preface everything saying that I'm not a lawyer. I don't pretend to be a lawyer. I don't know, all the legal questions. I don't have the answers for you. But this was expected that the judge would deny this. Kathleen needs to get it out of that court. So while it's disappointing, it's expected. And the thing that we always try to remind people of is Kathleen says it typically takes her 16 years, right? That's number 16 years to free the wrongfully accused. So, and she's only been on the case 2 years, 2.5 years. So, I don't get our legal system. It makes no sense to me that this all takes so long, that you're in one court and they deny it, you can be kicked up to another one, and then if they deny it, you go back down and find something else and then go. It's just this never-ending thing, and it sucks. We need criminal justice reform, and I don't understand why it goes back to the judge that has already ruled against you. How many are apt to say, "Oh, I was wrong, I'm going to rule the other way." So, but basically, the ruling yesterday was saying that the CDs, the DVDs/CD that Kathleen was using as new evidence isn't new, because it existed back during the original trial, and Strang and Buting just chose to do nothing about it. So to me, that says ironclad proof of ineffective assistance of counsel. But that's not what this latest filing was talking about. I know that Strang and Buting were misled. They were told that it was Brendan's computer, and I know it might be hard for people to distinguish the two different cases, but Stephen and Brendan were tried separately, and Brendan wasn't used in Stephen's case at all. So thinking it's Brendan's computer, it would have nothing to do with their then defense of Stephen. But it's also then, on the flip side, it's Strang and Buting's fault that they didn't do their due diligence, because why would you ever just believe Sweaty Sweat Sweat? And when all these people in Manitowoc are capable of framing Stephen, you shouldn't take anything they give you or say to you at face value. So, and then from what I've been told, it means we probably won't hear anything from the next step, because now it goes to the Court of Appeals or Circuit of Appeals or whatever it's called. So we shouldn't hear anything until the beginning of November. So it's just more waiting. I'm going to scroll down right now. I haven't scrolled at all to see anything that anybody has said. And I'm also not going to, this isn't going to be one of my big, huge, long things. Usually I get on here and I, just blab forever and talk for 2 hours. But I have an appointment at noon to get to, so I can't be on here very long. Scrolling through is just people saying hello and saying support. Okay, so that's all that's here right now. So like I said, it's just a waiting game. This is not the end. It's just gonna take some more time. We don't know when Bobby's computer was wiped. We know that Kathleen, when Barb finally turned it over to her after getting much pressure to turn over that computer, still don't understand why Barb would help the state that put Brendan in prison, but then won't help Kathleen, who is the only person who can free Brendan. But we do know that that computer has been wiped, but we don't know when, and don't know if Zellner's expert was able to determine, was it wiped during the, 7 months or whatever that the state had it? Was it wiped after that? We don't know. And the whole thing with Stephen's original case is a bunch of bullshit with this whole Denny, Brady, blah, 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 whichever is which, that you can't present any other suspects. So that was another thing that really tied Strang and Buting's hands. And there's still to this day, nobody has been able to tell me what is Stephen's motive. That if you think Stephen did this, what is his motive? Why would he murder some random chick? And if you're gonna say that he's like some pervert or something like that, there was no porn in his house, but there is at Bobby's. So, why do you have to have a ironclad motive for another suspect when you have zero for Stephen? And yes, I typically when I've been doing these live things, I've been doing it in our closed groups. By me doing it here on the public page, that means all the guilters will watch this and they're going to take screenshots of my face and make fun of me and blah, 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 whatever. They're a bunch of idiots and really should find something positive to do in their life besides, just trying to be cyberbullies. So anyway, that's where we're at is, so Judge Flowers denied yesterday, and Kathleen tweeted that, she really doesn't care, it was expected and needs to go to another court, and that we probably won't hear anything till November. So that is the latest. Let me scroll back down again. Shannon, you seem choked up. I'm not, I guess I am, because I just think of Dolores and Alan. And we know that Dolores recently has been experiencing some heart problems. And that will be the greatest tragedy, is if Stephen's parents don't live to see him freed. they've been fighting for him basically his whole adulthood. You know, he went to prison when he was 22 and then was only out for 2 years before he was put back in. So I have a hard time with that, because that's horrible for what Stephen's parents have had to endure. So Brady, the new filing was because Kathleen wanted an evidentiary hearing because of the new evidence that she has found with the computer. So you have all that stuff that Bobby was looking up on that computer. I know there's people that are going to say that, well, anybody could have done that on the computer. No, it's all there on the times that stuff was put on the computer, that Bobby was the only one who would be home to have looked at those things. Bobby lied about where he was because Kathleen has his cell phone records and found that his phone pinged off a tower, which was the other direction towards this dam, where 2 people had seen Teresa's RAV4 abandoned at that dam. And one of them had even texted Scott Todick to tell them that he saw the vehicle when Teresa was just reported as missing. And Scott did not pass that on to anybody. He kept it quiet. We also know that Bobby lied about going to work. He was 2 hours late for work. We know that Scott Todick tried to sell Bobby's 22 at his work a couple days after Teresa was missing. So Kathleen was trying to get an evidentiary hearing, and the judge denied it. So now it'll just go on to the next court. Brady, is the computer still being examined? Kathleen was only allowed to have it for 10 days. So the state had it for 7 months or whatever, and the defense only got it for 10 days. So I guess the state has it again. Or no, Barb has it, not the state. Barb has it. Jean says, you've opened my eyes about Barb. I don't want to get too much into the weeds on this because, like I said, I do have an appointment in an hour. Barb has shown herself to be extremely shady. Because why wouldn't you help the defense? And and I know other things, and we've posted it. I'm not going to get into it here, because I know the people that come to the Steven Avery Project public page, they don't want to hear the drama bullshit. They just want the case. So we do have a group called MAM Gossip, and then that's where we get into that other stuff. So I'll just leave that alone then. And, MAM Gossip, we talk about that. Shannon says, do you think the state has paid off everyone to stay quiet? Maybe they even paid Netflix to stay away. If he won, this would be an international conspiracy and would really change our judicial system. Okay, so first thing, has the state paid everyone off to stay quiet? That's a possibility, because there are a lot of suspicious things of people who have bought things right around that time, like homes, claimed bankruptcy and then bought a home. So they could be paid off. These people also had charges against them that were dropped. So that could be used against them, that they could go to prison for this, or like having child porn that should have been looked into. So that could be another way that the family or whoever is being controlled. Netflix is not paid off. The documentarians have been filming for the last 2 years, and are still filming. And eventually something will come out. It's just, look how long it took them to make the first one. So they have so much footage and so much stuff keeps going on. The editing process takes a while. You know, we've been told the second season will be out by the end of this year, but we were told that last year as well. So, but international conspiracy it's our judicial system is horrible, like we've said, and corruption isn't only in Manitowoc, but this really shows Manitowoc and Calumet counties as, holy cow, yeah, anything can happen there. They do not obey any laws there. Patricia says, hi, guilters. Brandy says, I hope that Steven Avery gets the justice that he deserves. I believe he is an innocent man. I believe law enforcement in his town has targeted him for many years. Is sad. Free Steven Avery. I concur. Angela, did they plant the key in Steven's bedroom? Depends who you talk to. I believe it was planted. I don't recall how many times that place had been searched. Also, Manitowoc was not supposed to be doing anything. They were supposed to just be showing be support if needed. And it's all Manitowoc that's in that room when, oh, here's this key that is so gently placed right here. And then they're going to claim that whatever you want to call it, because I know it was like a records cabinet, and I think Steven was using it as like a end table. They shook it violently, and then that's what got it to pop out the back. But when you see before and after pictures, the stuff on the table are in the same spots, including change. So the key was so planted. Jean says, why does Barb stay with Scott? Because I'm gonna guess it's so neither can testify against the other. And there's always the chance that Scott is holding stuff over Barb. If it was Bobby committed the murder and Scott just helped after the fact. So, and that Barb is just desperate to protect Bobby and doesn't want Scott to talk. I don't know. There, Patricia answered that too. So they stay together for protection. Just. Oh, Zoe says, sorry, didn't mean to laugh. Some of it's funny, And there's my cat meowing at the open window. Scrolling down. Yeah, Shelley says, how could you miss something like that in plain sight? Well, that's how all the evidence, well, not all the evidence was found. The key magically appeared that only has Steven's DNA on it, not Teresa's. Teresa basically drives for a living because either photography job, you're driving from job to job. So you're driving a lot. That key is constantly in her hand, out of her hand, in her hand, out of her hand. So there's no Teresa DNA on the key, but there's Steven's. So what that tells you is the key was wiped and then Steven's DNA planted on there. Then you have that magic bullet or the brass from the bullet. that was found in the garage after how many months and how many searches. And then that just happens to have Teresa's DNA on it. And then again, Manitowoc finding the stuff. So, yeah. Savannah asks, are you related to Stephen? No, I am not. I am just a supporter who watched Making a Murderer, and things have snowballed for me since then and getting involved in the case. A guy named Curtis Bussey is who started this page, Steven Avery Project. He started this page right after Making a Murderer aired. So this is the first Making a Murderer Facebook page. And he's somebody that's from Wisconsin and knew of the case. And so he ran this page for a year. He's young with a young family. He had at that time he had a young child, and his wife was pregnant with another. And he decided he needed to step back and spend more time supporting and being with his family. So I took it over from there. Paul Kalusinski. Paul Kalusinski calling me. He's another one of his daughter is in prison for a murder she didn't commit, and Kathleen Zellner is her attorney as well. Stephen calls me on occasion. He doesn't call me regularly, so I don't hear from him every Wednesday like other people do. Stephen knows he can call me whenever he would like. I'm not on Stephen's visitors list either. So I have never met Stephen in person. I've only talked to him on the phone. I have met several of his family members, but that's the extent of that. I'm just a supporter that believes in Stephen's innocence. Philip says, why is law enforcement not subject to a lie detector? Seems like a lot of contaminated evidence. Lie detectors are not admissible. Yeah, okay. I was just messaged from somebody saying I should take Paul's call. Well, also, it could be that Paul's daughter, Melissa, Kathleen filed for Melissa the same week she filed for Stephen, just a couple days after. So we should be hearing on Melissa's case any day too. But anyway, lie detectors are not admissible, and they're not reliable. People can pass those. Hold on. Hey, Paul, I'm doing a Facebook Live right now with on Steven Avery Project. No, I don't know anything about that. Oh, nice. No, I actually have a meeting at noon with the new job. Okay. All right, I'll check it out. All right, bye. Not about a case. Sorry about that. Oh, so lie detector, that's what I was talking about. So there's lie detectors are really no good. I know people always talk about that, but it doesn't prove anything. And law enforcement would know how to cheat it. And then also, you don't know, since Manitowoc is so corrupt, if the person who's administering the lie detector test would just say, no deception detected. So that won't work in this case. How is Stephen holding up? I haven't heard from him since this latest thing. I just know every day, every time I do talk to Stephen, he's happy-go-lucky and always positive. He's getting out right around the corner. I'm typically a gloom and doom person, Eeyore, and everything's going to go bad. And I can't believe Stephen, with everything that's been done to him, that he is able to stay so calm and positive. So I'm going to assume he's okay, because Kathleen will have already given him the breakdown of this was to be expected and just trying to get to the next court. They just needed, there's steps you have to go. So it had to go back to this judge for her to deny it. But now the CDs and the DVDs and the CD are in evidence to go to the next court. Daniel says, no blood noted anywhere on the site, no UV traces of blood. Exactly. Because Stephen would not be able to clean up all the blood. It's just, I know they're going to say bleach. I have joked about this with Stephen on the phone, saying to him, no offense, but, you're not the cleanest person, and there's no way you could clean up a crime scene that nothing would be left behind. Matthew says, how's your day going? You stressed out about all of this? No. As I said a little earlier, and I realize since this is live, people tune in at the second so you don't hear what I said previously. The only thing that really bothers me about this is that it prolongs it, and I really want Stephen to be returned home to his parents before they die. And with Dolores experiencing some health issues lately, that's my big concern. I know from Kathleen saying it typically takes the 16 years to free somebody, and that I also advocate for 2 of her other cases that are, just dwindling away in prison, that this just takes so long. So I'm prepared for that part. So that's the only thing that's really upsetting me right now. Okay, people talking about lie detector tests. Patricia's saying, I remember Curtis. Jean says, does Curtis regret the tattoo he got? I don't talk to Curtis. So I will just say from my personal view on it, as somebody, as you can see, I've got lots and lots of tattoos, and I have this tattoo. I don't know. I've tried to do this before, to stand on a rolling chair so you can see it. I've got this tattoo. See that one there? So that's one for Brendan that Amy, Barb, and I all have. And now obviously Amy and I don't speak with Barb. So do I regret that tattoo? Absolutely not. Because I support and believe in Stephen and Brendan. The family is irrelevant, other than Stephen's parents, who, I totally feel for them. So I don't regret my tattoo at all, and I have other tattoos on me, like for people that are no longer in my life. And I don't regret those either, because these are, you remember the time that you got it. Oh, that's going to make me cry now. All right, I'm going to move on. Savannah says, what I don't understand is why they're just going after Stephen. Why not the whole family? Why just one person and now Brendan? Okay, well, they're going after Stephen because of the lawsuit that Stephen had against Manitowoc for the Penny Bernstein case. So that's why they're going after Stephen. And why Brendan got dragged into it is because Brendan is Stephen's alibi. Since, it was Brendan was with Stephen that night. So I believe that they first were just trying to get Brendan to implicate Stephen. That because of Brendan not being able to understand what they were trying to lead him to, it then brought him into implicating himself. And so then they ran with that, because they would say things to Brendan and Brendan would just guess at how to answer or just parrot back what they said. So, and I do know they questioned all the Dassey boys, but they don't all have Brendan's IQ. So, but again, it's Brendan was the one that was with Stephen that night. So to fit their narrative that Stephen did it, they needed Brendan to either say that he knew Stephen did it, he saw Stephen do something, or Stephen told him something, or when they couldn't get Brendan to understand that, now Brendan's implicating himself. Really sad. Oh, okay. That's somebody replying to Christy. Christy is whenever I do these lives, whether or not it's in the Stephen Avery Project public page or in the closed gossip page, she's the one that's on it, that when questions are asked, she will get you the links. So Christy's handling that. I don't need to answer whatever that is. Corey is asking, when is Making a Murderer Part 2 coming to Netflix? Have you heard anything? They have said again that we should see, it should be out by the end of this year, but they said it last year too. So, but you have to understand, and I know we talked about this earlier, that there's so much going on and there's so much to edit. And how do you make this all into this documentary, because look how long it took them to put out the first one, from all the footage they had. So, I mean, it's just like everything else with this case. We are stuck waiting. It takes a while. Okay. Savannah says, if they can pinpoint all this on Stephen without lie detector, imagine what they could do to him with one. Bingo. And I'm going to say hello to, I pass a whole bunch of people saying hello and hi. Hello. Shelly says, I guess we have to stop and think that he has spent most of his life in prison. So unfortunately, he is used to the slow wheels of justice turning. Yeah, it's sad. Tim says, what is the status of Brendan's case? Brendan's case went to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court denied it. So Brendan is running out of options. So he really depends on what Kathleen is able to find out in Stephen's case. The problem with Brendan over Stephen is Brendan confessed. And yes, we all know it was coerced and, there's no evidence on Brendan other than his forced confession. But that's all our legal system is seeing, is that he confessed, while Stephen has maintained his innocence always. So Laura says, ugh, I am late again. Not your fault, Laura. I just, I didn't know when I was going on today because I wasn't sure when my meeting was going to be this afternoon. And then I'm hosting an event tonight. So I wasn't sure when I could fit this in. So when I saw I had a little bit of a window, I hopped on. Patricia says, you are one busy woman, but we really do appreciate the time you give us as we learn such a lot from your podcast. Well, thank you very much, Patricia. Shelley says, what other case do you follow other than Melissa and Stephen? And then Lily right after is saying, who's Melissa? So Melissa Kaluzinski is another case that I advocate for. And Kathleen Zellner is her attorney. So Kaluzinski is Kalusinski. I am also a moderator of her Facebook page, which is called Official Family Page for Melissa Kaljuzinski or something like that. I can't remember what it's called. Sorry. That's a case from here in Illinois where Melissa is in prison for killing a 16-month-old child when she worked at a daycare center. And there is plenty of evidence to show that she is innocent. And like Brendan, she has a lower IQ, and they questioned her for hours and hours. And she said over and over again that she didn't do this. And then eventually it's, we know it was an accident. Just say it's an accident. You'll go home. Everything will be fine. So then she started saying what they told her to, and they arrested her. They doctored the x-rays of the child. It's a really sad case. And the show 48 Hours, the CBS show 48 Hours, has covered the case. They have 2 different episodes on Melissa. The first one is called Blaming Melissa, and the second one is The Fight for Melissa. It's up on YouTube, so you could Google that and watch that. Kathleen has been on Melissa's case, I think, since 2012. So her case was, Kathleen filed the same week that she filed for Melissa. So we should be hearing from them. That, and Melissa's case is going to be going to the Illinois Supreme Court. And then another one that I advocate for that is also Kathleen's is Kent Pellegrini. I also admin his Facebook page that is Justice 4, and his last Kent Pellegrini, or Justice for Kent. And she filed for Kent like near the end of July. And Kent is in prison for raping his wife. It's a stupid story, but you can find information on that. And so because I am so involved in those 3 cases, I don't really look at, I'm not really following too closely any other cases, just those 3. For Kent, I do visit him in prison. He calls me on the phone. I am his contact person for him and his lawyers, because Kathleen has a phone system that when you call her, you then have to press 1 for such and such. You don't get an actual person, and you don't get access to an actual person. So Kent isn't able to call his lawyer. So now Kent will call me and tell me he wants to talk to his lawyer, and then I contact the office and say Kent wants to speak to them, and then they can call Kent, because lawyers are able to call the prison, family and such or not. And then for Melissa, I help the family however they need. And I attend both Kent and Melissa's hearings. I've also attended 2 of Brendan's. There hasn't been any in the time that I've been involved with this, that there's been a Stephen case to attend, but I do plan on it if anything does go to court, to attend Stephen's as well. Lebus asks if KZ gets Stephen out, will that get Brendan out too? No. You should watch, it's called Dreamcatcher, right? I always confuse what it's called. I believe it's Dreamcatcher. That's the Ryan Ferguson story. And Kathleen was able to free Ryan Ferguson, but the other person who went to prison for the same murder is still there. And again, the difference in that was the other guy has confessed and Ryan never did. So it doesn't automatically mean the other one gets out. So it's going to depend on what Kathleen has. Okay. Laura says, I saw a post on Free Brendan Dassey about people trying to get Kim Kardashian to help the Innocent Project to get Brendan out of prison. If that is true, can she help Stephen? I guess Sweaty Sweat Sweat help get a lady out of prison with President Trump's help. Is that something that can really happen? Oh, I just see KK and think it's Sweaty Sweat Sweat. Kim Kardashian, sorry. First thing is, the president can't do anything for Stephen or Brendan because their cases are state, not federal. The president can only pardon federal cases. So the only person who can pardon them is the governor of Wisconsin, Scott Walker, who, when he took office, said that he would never pardon anybody, that he completely believes in our judicial process, and if they're found guilty, they're guilty. So people in Wisconsin need to vote Scott Walker out, because and that's something that we've also been working on in Kathleen's other cases here in Illinois with Melissa Kaluzinski's case. Is we've got a governor race going on here. And so I volunteer for the man running against our current governor. And we hope that if Kathleen isn't able to free Melissa, that the new governor will pardon her. So I have given him information on the case, and the guy that is running for governor here, the law school that Brendan's lawyers are from, that's his law school, and so he supports the Innocence Project. So cross your fingers that if JB is elected on November 6th, that if Kathleen hasn't been able to free Melissa, that we'll have a chance that JB will pardon her. So there's nothing Kim Kardashian can do for Brendan, because talking to Trump won't change anything. It's all Manitowoc and Scott Walker. That's who has control of this, sadly. And then if it goes to the Supreme Court. How does Stephen deal with the constant denials and rejections from the courts? He's always positive. And as I said earlier in this, that Kathleen would have already prepared him that this would be coming. He will always know, he will have already known this, and he does a lot of studying with his case and all that. So he knows some stuff about our judicial system because he's in it. He knows way more than I do. So I'm sure in typical Stephen fashion, he's all right and just looking for the next thing. Thank you, Christy, for posting the links. Dream Killer might be it, because I keep going, because I keep thinking of the Dream Catcher, but Christy, I think you're right, and it's Dream Killer. So watch that. And also, when you watch that, Ryan Ferguson's father, Bill Ferguson, has to be the best person on the planet. You'll fall in love with Bill Ferguson. So so check that story out. Shane asks, what's next for Zellner? So in Stephen's case, it's onto the Court of Appeals or Circuit of Appeals, whatever it is, that we won't hear anything until like early November on that. And then we're still waiting to hear any day now. We're going to hear on 2 of her other cases. And then she's been working on cases where the men are free, and she's now trying to get them their damages. Like she just got Ryan Ferguson some more money. I believe Ryan just got $5 million. And then there's this other guy, Mario. I can't remember his last name, but she just got Mario some money. And then she's also working on a guy here in Illinois who she didn't free him. He had been in prison for like 20 years or something. Again, one of those really long things. And then he was awarded his damages, which wasn't a lot. I think it was like $100 and something thousand. So for losing 25 years of your life. And so he took his check to a bank, and the bank refused him. And first they said because Kathleen was also listed on the check that she had to endorse it as well. And so then she endorsed the check and he went back, and they still wouldn't take his money. And so it is assumed, because it's Chicago, that it's because he's Black. So Kathleen is going after the bank. So those are the things I know of that she's working on. I'm sure there's more. Patricia, I don't know if the president has ever made comments on this case, but I know one of the famous cases in New York, the Central Park Five, even after it was proved that they were innocent, he said they were guilty. So and that's another documentary to watch, is on the Central Park Five, if you haven't yet, about showing how people can be coerced into false confessions, because the Central Park Five are not low IQ. They were just young Black guys, and what happened to them. And that's on Netflix, the Central Park Five. What are Stephen's cell accommodations like? Like him and Brendan both, they have a TV, it's, I'm not going to say, oh, it's not that bad, but they're not on death row, where you have absolutely nothing. And it's just this, concrete and bars and no light and all that stuff. So, so he watches TV and stuff. Okay, so I'm at the end of any. Yep. Thank you, Christy. Paradise Lost is another one. If you haven't watched Paradise Lost, that is on HBO On Demand. There are 3 of those that are updated years apart. And then there's a couple different movies made on it. And one of Brendan's attorneys, Laura Nyrider, was part of the defense team for Damien Echols, who was the one who was sentenced to death and was on death row until they were offered the Alford plea to be free. And an Alford plea says you plead guilty while maintaining your innocence. So it means that you can't sue, and you're looked at like you did these crimes, even though you say you didn't. And one of the boys in that case, James Baldwin, he didn't want to take the Alford plea because he knows he's innocent and that there was a ton to prove it, and he wanted to fight for that. But he and Jesse, Miss Kelly, weren't on death row, and Damien was. So they ended up taking it because death row was literally killing Damien. He lost a lot of his eyesight, just multiple things. So James Baldwin took it to save Damien's life, because again, you see how long our process is. So you didn't know how long you would, the process would take to get you out. And they had already been in there, I don't even know how many years, 15 years. So, and they were like 17, 18 when they were taken. So, but Jesse Misskelley in that case, like Brendan and Melissa Kaluzinski, low IQ, and they got him to confess and implicate the others. No, Kimberly, Stephen and Brendan are not at the same prison. Stephen is at Waupun Correctional, and Brendan is at Columbia. There is a pinned post at the top of Steven Avery Project, or listed as an announcement or whatever. The addresses for both of them are there if you want to write to either one of them. And it's also when you're on the Steven Avery Project page, it should be in the right upper corner is a picture that then has the addresses in there. So if you want to write to them, you can. They like getting letters. I always tell people, make sure your return address is also on your letter, because it's going to a prison that rips open the envelope. So your return address could be destroyed. So if either guy does want to write you back, they would have your address that way. Okay, so, all right, I have to be at my meeting in a half hour. So I am going to go now. If you want to follow any of the drama stuff where we get into more of the case that lots of people don't want to talk about, that's called MAM Gossip. We also have the closed Steven Avery Project group, and that's where we can also discuss other Kathleen cases. But this page, the Steven Avery Project public page, we try to keep this only about Steven, period. This is, Steven refers to this as his website. So here we try to only discuss the case. I know we went off onto a little bit of the other stuff in this live video, but our posts and such are typically just case related. As soon as we hear anything on Steven's case or the Making a Murderer 2, it will go up on here immediately. We get tons of messages and posts of people asking, what's the latest? Trust me, once we get it, because we have several moderators here at Steven Avery Project, and they have been here since this was Curtis's page. So they are very involved, and so they're the ones that find that information, not me. And they get it and post it as soon as they get it. So it'll go up here. And then in Making a Murderer Live, I do you never know when I'm going to pop on in there and do a live thing, because I used to write things up, but I've gotten lazy. And it's way quicker to just do a video and express things that way. Scroll down again. People saying thank you. So, all right, ending now. Feel free to, if you find articles and stuff about the case that you want to share on Steven Avery Project, feel free to do so. That's another reason why we have the closed group, because on a public page, if somebody who's not an admin or a moderator posts it, it goes over on the right side and kind of gets lost, and people don't, pay attention over there. But when you have a group, no matter who makes a post there, it goes front and center and everybody can see it. So we really love for other people to contribute. So dive in. I just ask that if you find information somewhere else, that you say where you got it from and include a link, because I want that place to get the credit or the hit, or whatever, that if it's a website that gets a couple pennies every time somebody's on their site, they get what's entitled to them, since they're the ones that originated that article or video or whatever. All right, so I'm gonna stop blabbing so I can get ready to go. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody who supports Stephen, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.